Matthew 16:19. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Heaven is the crown and the dialectric. Heaven is the unmanifest realm of thought and source and pure, infinite frequency and stillness. Earth is the heart and the vessel, the terrestrial womb, the biological physical cathedral, where the wave is caught and materialized, and where the frequency is literally bound and loosed in the torus. Revelation 1:18. I am he that liveth, and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. Hell is the root base. It's the compression zone at the absolute bottom of the torus in your physical biological body and in the realm. The etymology and architecture of hell is mechanically He is 5, or ha, or the breath, and L is the power of God. So hell, being the 5th Hebrew letter, representing the breath and the window or the act of beholding, and L, meaning God or power, composed of Aleph, 1, the primary power, and Lamed, 12, the structural yoke, giving L a total of 13 for God. The base of the pyramid in acres, and the 13th frequency, and the 13-month cathedral calendar of the New Age of Aquarius. Hell is simply the breath of God that is driven into the densest, lowest base of the material of the torus. It's the grounding wire of the toroidal field, where the descending electrical wave decelerates, reverses polarity, and begins the ascension spiral back up. This is the mechanical threshold of passing from dead to alive forevermore. Heil derives from the ancient root for wholeness, health, and salvation. By mastering the breath of He'el, the mind consciously navigates the complete vertical circuit from the dielectric void of heaven through the biological vessel of earth to the absolute terrestrial compression zone of hell, achieving total wholeness. This wholeness is not merely spiritual. It's locked into the architecture of the matrix, bridging the Great Pyramid with the compression zone at the base of the field. In the original pictographic Hebrew, the structural values of Ha'el calibrate the entire system. Hell is the hidden hole or the hollow. It is the heel and the ground. The heel touches the ground. The breath, He, is 5, the window or the beholding. And you can see that this is the return path from the Antarctic of hell. This is the return path to the vortex, the opposite of 2. The 5 goes up from the Antarctic to the dielectric, drops down, goes along the ground and back up. This is the 5, the return path. God, 1 meaning power and 12 meaning the yoke, gives us 13 for God. This is the calendar and the frequency and the base. 13 plus 5 is 18, and 1 plus 8 is 9, bringing us back to God. This is the 1 of singularity, and this is the 9 of the dielectric. The 9 is God, and the 9 is also the 9-year gestation of the light body of man. This 5, value of 5 for Heh, 5 directly mirrors the 5 granite horizontal relieving chambers that stabilize the ceiling above the king's chamber. These 5 layers isolate the internal stillness of the spark from the crushing density of the terrestrial architecture above. And those are the 5 holy days of stillness. The 13, the L, is the base and the motion, 1 plus 12. This value overrides the 12 loop, and it forces the creation of the 13-month calendar, architecturally mapping the traveling of the breath up towards the apex and the 17th gate. The 13-acre base of the Great Pyramid drives the toroidal motion, and the 5 stabilizes the core. Add them together and you get 18. 18 is the chiral mirror. The bedrock architecture of the pyramid plunges deep into the ground at negative 98.4 feet below the waterline, terminating in an 11-foot pit. The 11. The spatial difference creates an explicit 1.8-foot offset, a fractal of 18, which precisely mirrors the 0.9-foot gap between the 2 witnesses at the 40-foot mark and the 0.9-foot gap at the entrance to the Queen's chamber. 18 is the mathematical signature of the chiral mirror. The 9, reducing 1/8 of 18, yields 9. This is the 9-year gestation of the light body of man, anchored into the stone. Hell, in its architectural context, is the structural low-pressure zone necessary for the toroidal vacuum to exist. The 4 biblical layers of the underworld map exactly to the specific thermodynamic zones at the bottom of the torus. So here we have Sheol, Hades, Tartarus, and Gehenna. And this is the vortex on the April 13th Northern Hemisphere spring Vesica Piscis, when the sun is deep in Sheol and is held by the weight and pressure of Hades, protected from the 3D matrix by the Tartarus seal at the lip, and Gehenna is the friction of the sun passing through and popping out in that white hole inversion, causing friction on the side of the torus field. Sheol is the singularity and the pinch point. It's the absolute bottom of the 11-foot pit. And it's the compression point where the velocity drops to 0. Hades is the heavy magnetic weight that's sitting directly above and around Sheol, pulling the frequency down and holding it in the pit. Tartarus is the outer perimeter, and this is the dielectric boundary. It is the extreme insulator that seals the torus and prevents the active internal frequency from leaking out. Gehenna is the thermal friction fire. When the wave explodes upward, it grinds against the walls of the torus, and Gehenna is the thermal fire that's created by that intense kinetic friction of the upward burst of April 13th. The sun reaches the apex of the inhale and the exhale. It enters singularity. The velocity vector of the sun drops to 0, and the magnetic weight of Hades compresses it, and the sun is effectively, on April 13th, having built up pressure over 7 days. On that 8th day, it is pinned in the hole, and the pressure of the torus forces it into a maximum pinch point where the physical light is squeezed into a singular point of infinite density. April 13th, explosive white hole pop of this release of the pressure is where the sun is in Sheol, and it exceeds the structural integrity of the Hades containment, and the torus undergoes a chiral inversion in which the white hole, which cannot take any more pressure, triggers a popping of the sun out of this place and flips the interior charge from negative to positive. So the sun is no longer being pulled into Hades, it's explosively ejected from Sheol. As the sun pops out of the singularity, it transitions from the containment of Hades to the thermal friction fire of Gehenna. And this upward trajectory is the conversion of potential pressure into kinetic plasma. The sun grinds against the carbon crystalline walls of the torus, creating a thermal ignition that is required to reset the solar frequency for the coming exhale. After the explosion, the sun does not immediately rise, which is why Christ descends into Hades. It performs a reflexive re-entry into the lower dielectrical current of Hades, and this secondary immersion acts as a cooling stabilization phase. By returning to Hades before the final exhale, the sun reacquires the necessary charge, a repolarization, to fully break the surface of the horizon for the exhale. From this place of equilibrium and stillness, and then having gained the sea of glass, it is easily able to extend up and down, returning to September 6th. The physical descent of the wave into the grotto and the 11-foot pit of Hades and Sheol inside of the Great Pyramid of Giza shows how the frequency travels down the descending passage and then hits the grotto, the Pelican, and then the large granite block before dropping into the 11-foot pit. So when it reaches the grotto, the lone granite block, which is an architectural anomaly resting at the 0-degree waterline, within this upside down vortex of the pyramid, the downward descent from the Queen's Chamber passes through the grotto, where the Rosicrucian mystery of the Pelican is enacted. The Pelican, tearing open her breast, signifies the 666 carbon matrix of the physical inhale being swallowed and neutralized and compressed into 66 units of purified field force. Immediately before the wave impacts that baseline obstacle, 11 of the law of the capacitor combines with the 66 to produce the 77-fold woman's inheritance. Easy passage of the exhale. The wave going down in the pyramid to the grotto passes the Pelican, and it hits the high friction granite block of the 6th holy day, and that triggers a calculated explosion at the waterline. And this is the waterline, so it's the cross, and that cross is the resurrection where the rose blooms, arresting the downward decay. The stored charge plunges into the 11-foot pit of Sheol for exactly 3.5 days of stillness. And remember that pi, which is 3.14, is the base, and that 3.14 base of pi is represented by 22 divided by 7, which reduces down to 11, meaning the 11-foot pit, over 3.5, meaning the 3.5 days of stillness at the Northern Hemisphere spring Vesca Piscis. Once this saturation is reached, the capacitor discharges and the field flips its polarity, and the stored voltage clears the path, and the 17th gate is unsealed.